Hello, everyone. It's Joe McGrath, and welcome to a special edition of the Automation Insider. Before we jump into today's conversation, I wanted to give a massive thank you to our partners, Locus Robotics and Tompkins Robotics. We actually recorded 2 episodes live from the show floor, and both of the episodes were phenomenal. Special shout out to the Locus team. It was one of the absolute highlights. We saw so much tech that's going to reshape how we think about warehousing flexibility in 2026 and beyond. But for now, we wanted to take you right kind of into the heart of the action. Sit back and enjoy this recorded segment from the MODEX show, MODEX 2026. And if you like what you're hearing and you want to stay ahead of the curve, make sure you hit the subscribe button for the Automation Insider.
Hello, and welcome to the Automation Insider. My name is Joe McGrath, Solutions Design Lead with Hy-Tek Intralogistics and very handsome podcast host. Today, I wanted to talk about some new products with an old friend, Al. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. Al Deacon. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Locus Robotics, also co-founder in the business, so been here for quite some time.
Okay, so I think that you have a pretty interesting story about how you got here from where you are. Give me the journey.
I think this is an interesting time to tell that story because literally 10 years ago, I drove a U-Haul down from Boston and we had a booth way over in the corner there. It's kind of exciting to now be here today and sort of see how we've evolved and grown over the years. So it really has been a journey. But I went back even before that. A few of us who started a business together called Quiet Logistics. And it was we had no idea that we'd ultimately get into robotics, but we were the third Kiva Systems customer, and many of the folks in the industry know the Kiva Systems story. What happened was Amazon bought Kiva and took it off the market, and we were sort of faced with this dilemma: like, how do we fill this void? We no longer had access to this really interesting robot-enabled technology. And, after sort of scanning the market, we made I'd say an unusual at the time decision to try and build our own robotic-based solution. Now, you might think, well, what's a 3PL doing?
That's a big pivot.
Yeah, it's unusual is what I like to use. But we said, well, we really looked around. We said, we have warehouses. We understand the process. We wrote our own WMS, for example. We have existing customers. We have a wide variety of product types. I think it really set us up well to define sort of a next generation solution. And we had never built a robot ever.
Yeah.
But we felt like if we could design the right type of robot, we could enable it in a broader solution that would be impactful. I think that ultimately was the most important. That thought that we had was, let's translate our understanding of the problem set into a real world solution that we think has an opportunity to deliver ongoing value, right? Then, people, we talk to people all the time that say, hey, robots, how do you make robots successful? And I continually say, well, it's not really about the robots, it's what you do with them.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that was, you go back to the origin story, it's like we knew what we wanted to do. We just had to design the right robot to do that job. So ultimately we built one. We put two in a U-Haul, drove them all the way down from Boston and launched the business in 2016. MODEX was really our first big unveiling of Locus Robotics.
Cool. So it's now a very well-known solution, right? There's a lot of operations where you'll see them running around. I've done customer tours. We brought folks in. They said, "Hey, this is very clear what the process was." And I think your origin story is fantastic because it's a group of people that understood the problem. And it said, "Hey, I know what the tool needs to do. I'll just figure out how to make the tool." It's kind of rare, and it really shows in the success you guys have had.
Well, I would also say it was important for us not to get distracted. So if I again go back to like the early degrees, we deployed our robots to do one thing, and that was picking. I mean, if you're in the warehouse, you'd understand that there's lots of steps to moving product from door to inventory and back out to another.
Sometimes there's too many steps.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And there's always an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? We could do this, or we could do that, or we could do. But we said, one of the fastest growing elements in the industry is this thing called e-commerce. And of course, everybody knows it, but like it has a huge challenge around labor. It's really labor intensive. And so that's an opportunity for us to really define a value proposition. And once we started going, it wasn't perfect when we started. It took a lot of learning and a lot of iteration, but we were able to sort of eventually rinse and repeat and do that very, very well. And that allowed us to just continually build a customer base that then gave us the permission to add others in. So is that focus early on, not just a robot, but on a process that was, I think, critically important.
So it's very, I mean, so like you have a cobot platform today, right? It kind of behind us, I see that there's a transition into a much higher level of automation.
Yeah.
Maybe less cobot, more lights out. Talk about the new product a little bit, and then why the evolution.
So it's funny because when you bring a new product to market, so 10 years ago, everybody's like, this is cool. Why don't you just put an arm on?
Yeah.
We're like, hold on, we just got to get these
one thing at a time.
Yeah, roll around first, right? But the idea was not lost on us that you could have mobility and manipulation in the same form factor. But from a strategy perspective, we really felt it was important to establish value around mobility.
Yep.
Right. And eventually, the manipulation capabilities would continue to improve in terms of performance, price, or cost. And at some point, when we had a really good foundation for, of customers and proven mobility, we could sort of leapfrog into a new concept. So Array is what we calling this next iteration. It's fully autonomous. So it's both a mobile robot with an arm that can pick orders in a fully autonomous way. So whereas, our earlier cobots would typically increase productivity to actually double the productivity of FTE in a warehouse. Here we're actually able to reduce the reliance on labor significantly, up to 90%.
Yep.
It's a huge step forward into full automation. And so a couple of things are important about that. One is we always felt like there would eventually be an opportunity to deliver, whether you call it lights out or a dark warehouse or something that was, more fully automated.
Yep.
Always felt like that was part of the vision. That would be an opportunity. It was also interesting because, success in some ways begets additional challenges and opportunities. In fact, that we had this growing install base of customers and bots in the field. People were always looking at us as an early innovator, say, well, what else is coming? What else are you going to do? So we looked at this as an extension of, or an evolution of our initial robotic concept to be able to say, I could start with a cobot approach that you can continue to migrate over time and eventually get them. Or you can start here, like whatever you want, but there's optionality, right? And I think that anytime you grow a business, you go through a variety of phases where at first it's like, do you even have a product? It's the old product market fit, and obviously an important question. But then beyond that, it's like, okay, are you just a single product company, or can you actually produce multiple products that can work together or work separately? And then thirdly, are you really a sort of a strategic partner? Are you a platform? Are you somebody that I can work with for not just 2 or 3 years, but 5, 10, 15 years as you think about scaling these capabilities across very large enterprises? So for us, this is a natural evolution, but I think it also is more importantly for our customers, the opportunity to say, hey, I can continue to invest and I can get to what's next, I can get to what's next, et cetera. So sort of fills a number of roles.
Where's so how, like, I think it's an interesting point. Today you have a smaller operation. They said, hey, let's start with some bots to me. I'm going to pick, right? Kind of a classic operation. Excellent use in like 3PL cases, right? It's kind of the killer app, I think, for a lot of circumstances. But then they grow and they want to automate more. What is that? What would a transition, to an array system look like? How would I step through that?
Yeah, it's a great question. You also touch on business model, which is interesting too, which we can come back to in a second. But obviously, ARM technology continues to evolve. We're not going to be picking dog food in the next 12 months, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's evolved a lot in the last 5 years. Like, the economics are different.
Absolutely. But, the view is like, this is something that will continue to scale and evolve quickly over time, right? So we feel like we have a significant, I'll say, SKU coverage, SKU eligibility out of the gate.
Yeah.
We also recognize that it's, with any new product, people are they're going to want to sort of trial, to pilot it or test on certain parts of their, SKU catalog.
Prove it works before invest.
Oh, yeah. And so that's, that would be a fairly logical way to start. But I think pretty quickly you're going to see, we're already seeing some inbound interest around this where people are saying, hey, I'm gonna design a new facility and I want to start with this at the quality.
Yeah.
And so that's also an interesting opportunity and credibility. Now, if we were a pure startup and didn't have the reputation and the credibility to market, that might be a tougher conversation. But I think as we've been able to build a really good reputation with our earlier products, I think we've become more of a trusted advisor to say, yeah, hey, we can start in any number of ways.
Yeah.
I think for the existing customer base that we have, we're going to see a lot of folks who say, let's start with a couple of aisles, let's put a few bots in, and we'll keep adding, and over time as the solution prints out. So, again, that comes back to, people say, like, what makes you guys different? For us, ever since we started the business, it's all about, like, we want to be absolutely flexible. Which goes back to your comment around, sorry, I'm prattling on here, but it goes back to your comment around 3PLs. We were a 3PL. We understood the need to be fundamentally flexible. I mean, your customers change, the product lines change, the channels,
Contracts, maybe 3 years. Like, so absolutely, your business is not going to be the same tomorrow. I think it's the first time I started working on 3PL projects, it was a big learning curve for me. This isn't the same business for 20 years and you're farming.
Right. So bringing it back to Array and sort of how we think about things, well, at the end of the day, we just want to be flexible. So we're delivering the value. We can scale it up. I mean, we have a customer just last week that hit a 500,000 unit output day, units out the door.
Big day.
Which I think is unheard of for AMRs. So, I mean, we can scale up, but we can scale sideways. We can be incredibly flexible, which I think is critical. I mean, it's pretty, if you look at what's happened in the industry the last several years, tremendous amount of turmoil, uncertainty when it comes to forecasts and the like. And, we want to be able to have something that's dependable, but yet as business evolves and changes, you can change right alongside.
They got to keep up with like the rate of evolution of everyone else.
Like 100%.
Fantastic. Wait, so you've decided to partner with a couple of folks rolling Array out.
Yep.
What was your decision process in picking with some integrators to jump into the market? But
I think the first thing to understand is, like, this is really, Array is the first time we've had a product that we believe lends itself to really a trained system integrator relationship. There's a number of reasons for that. One is we think it can be integrated more broadly with other technology. Two is there is some infrastructure, unlike Origin and Vector, there is some specific infrastructure, right? So you look at the racking that we have automated drop-off and kick-up capabilities, with conveyor or even with flow rack and other things. So, this is really meant to be, I mean, it can be standalone, but it still requires supporting infrastructure around it. And that's not our business. Yeah. But then that's not our business, right? So we provide a robotic solution. There are a lot of good companies out there that, their bread and butter is building out warehouse infrastructure, and then connecting different components together. So that was a design decision and fundamentally a strategic decision for us in terms of how we thought about partnerships and alliances. To get to your question around like, okay, so who who are we working with? And we've announced certainly, Hy-Tek as one of the foundational partners, and very, very excited for that. It was important for us to work with partners that, first and foremost, they had a good reputation in the market, right? We're only as good as our last installation. We're only as happy as our last customer is satisfied, right? So those things are, having partners you could trust is critical. Having partners that have proven they can scale and do more than one project at a time. I mean, that's critically important. So that was sort of, I'll say, table stakes, right? And then it was also important for us to find folks that were forward-looking, right, or willing to innovate, willing to give us feedback as we need to learn, we need to improve, we need to continue to do what our customers see now. Yeah, and have that experience to be able to say, hey, I like what you're doing here. Have you thought about X? Have you thought about Y? I'm bring a different level of partnership to the table. It's not just we're providing totes and rack. Yeah. So certainly Hy-Tek, as we've gotten to know them over the years, certainly felt, they fit that mold present.
Yeah, we kind of aspire to like, what's the most creative way to solve this? And can we make the market economics work for it?
Yep.
And I think this was probably going to be a pretty beautiful thing. All right, so let's talk about scaling. A lot of systems, you may need to start with something and grow into. Alternatively, you may want to buy the solution you need day one, but not every business is the same size. So talk about how you would approach different scaling models with the regs.
Yeah, so scale is a loaded term.
I loaded it right up.
Yeah, well done. And so I think of scale in a number of dimensions. I think about it from going from 0 to 100, right? And, what's the level of throughput you can get out the door? I mean, we talk to a lot of customers that, they have an interest in efficiency. Everybody does at some level, but sometimes they just have to get stuff out the door.
Yeah, it's a fundamental requirement. If you do a 100K over X period of time, then we don't need to be doing S.
So I think just on that point alone, I mean, we've designed these systems to scale significantly. So sure, we can start in a mid-size operation. We can do 5,000-10,000 units a day in our suite. But where that becomes more interesting is as we actually continue to scale up. I mean, we have 7-8 customers now that run 3, 4, and even more 100 robots 24/7. And we're routinely shipping hundreds of thousands of units out the door out of a single facility. So that's scale on one level. I think I mentioned to you before, we just had one customer hit 500,000 units in a single boom.
Just wild number.
Yeah, and most people don't associate that with AMR. They're like, oh, that's a shuttle stage number. Those are
just all pallets.
Yeah, that's truly AMR, which is cool. So that's scale on one level.
Yeah.
I think scaling is also interesting, particularly in this day and age, when you think about scaling up and scaling down. So uncertainty in forecast, right?
Yeah.
And you say, hey, I've got 3 different buildings. My forecast is variable across all of them. This one forecast is going up. Quickly need to add robots. Great, you can do that. That's a great thing about a granular sort of AMR based concept. There's also the alternative, which is I have another site where volume's scaling down.
And I want to wind it down and consolidate it too. So
and we have customers that have done that. They, you would turn the bots. Obviously, we'd look to redeploy them in other sites, but that level of flexibility is something you don't see in fixed automation at all. And so that's another sort of concept around scaling up, scaling down. And then more specifically, but like one of the areas we've really, I think, been impactful is our ability to say you can run a fleet through 8, 9, 10 months of the year at a certain level and get strong utilization out of that. But then you can scale it up. You can scale it up directly for, say, in an e-com environment where it's it's a couple of months of just holiday, a holiday peak,
like Christmas, Black Friday peak. Yeah,
right. Or we have have omni-channel customers where they say, actually, my peak really starts at back to school, and then I'm filling the stores, and then I've got Black Friday, and then I've got returns, and then it slows down for a few months, and everybody goes on vacation. So there's that type of ability to say, I'm going to maintain a core fleet. But yeah, I can scale up, scale down for some of these sales periods or seasonal for the activities. And that's, I mean, that really at its heart, that ability to sort of tie capacity to demand is another sort of key tenet of flexibility.
Yeah. What's your kind of go-to solve for like a 20-to-1 peak?
Well, there's a two things. One is we can just add robots, right?
Yeah.
Certainly something that we do. 20-to-1 peak. There are two other things that an operator do. One is to typically extend their shift.
It's got 14, then you go to 20 more.
Right, exactly. So that's a common practice. And then sometimes for something that large, really, people are saying, I just got to get through it in an extended period of time. So, but like a 3, 4, 5x peak's not unusual. 20x is, you got a lot of work to do. But we can bring more robots to help you out.
Bringing in more robots for 1 month is like a pretty special thing.
It is.
It is not, it's kind of hard to like verbalize how rare that is to do it well. Now, a lot of people are saying, hey, I can reach a robot, and it doesn't really materialize that way, or it's better to just buy another robot.
Right. You hit on something there. It's one thing to just ship a bunch of robots, but the way that our support organization ensures that sites are prepped or they have the right design, that if there are layout changes or you need the right number of chargers, there's a lot of planning that goes into that.
I understand what that huge traffic is like. I think when you guys add robots, it's a very credible, like established practice.
So we want them to work. We want them to make sure that when they show up, they're productive, not just day one, but minute one, right? And so, yeah, I think that's another thing that you get back to, but take it all the way back to the beginning for a second. Like when we started the business, I think we did a really good job of being customer-centric and service-oriented to understand. I think some of this comes out of running a 3PL, understanding that the technology, the solution is an enabler, but if you don't support and if you don't engage, if you don't understand the process, then it's just another tool that sits on the sidelines, right? And
So there's so many part AMRs in buildings, and it's a heartbreaker. But yeah, nobody understood the process of why should we do this?
I think that's where you have to combine process, the change management, the engagement with everybody who needs to be involved. Like it really is, it's a team effort, right? I think that's whether it's peak or just in general at when you're deploying for the first time or whatever, it's critically important. So people say, yeah, you're a robotics company, but we're also in the process of helping people and understanding what they're trying to solve for.
Yeah. Great. Well, Al, thank you very much for meeting with me. I learned a lot. I hope it was fun to talk to you.
I love to talk about it. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. And for those following along at home, check us out on Spotify or wherever you download your podcast, and we'll see you next time.